Okay, Courtney, I'm just looking at your files here. You do have a black and white, you have a color logo, you do have a couple of JPEGs, I believe, here. The naming conventions look great. I'll take a look at these in Photoshop just to see what size they are. Image mode, CMYK color, size. Okay, these are maybe aren't exported quite right out of Illustrator. I'll have to show you how to do that today. Yeah, those don't look like they were exported quite right. They are in the right color mode though, for the most part. Okay, so we'll go into Illustrator. Let's start with the black and white, and we'll X out of that color one. I'm not going to save anything on that. So we want to use a font pair if possible. You did outline your fonts, which is great. But let's try this. Okay. So it looks like you just used the default font. I want you to spend a little time coming up with a nice font pair. So, I mean, we can go through the list. You know, a lot of times, you know, we can find a nice curvy font, and that will look really good with a really straight font. But whatever curvy font you decide to go with, make sure that it's thick enough that you can read it decently. This one's not super thick, but we can fudge it by adding in a stroke. And that will make it a little bit thicker. Sometimes the stroke is too thick and we actually have to make the stroke like a 0.5 or 0.25, but actually the 1 point stroke is actually working okay with this font at this size. So I would delete these and start over with a nice font pair if possible. We also want to center probably in the text box so we get a nice centered design. This might actually look good off to the side. I like what you're doing here. I don't know if you made these or not. These look like PNG files, but it would be a good idea to probably try and make some of these things. There's a couple different ways you can do it. Could use the ellipse tool and fill it in with black, and you know, just change the shape a little bit. Maybe Command C, Command V. Actually, the ellipse is not going to look super good for this, but we can use the warp tool to drag out sections of this. We can actually make the warp tool a lot bigger. Maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger, make it 0.5. I want to keep it 0.5 and 0.5 because I want it to be a perfect circle. It just tends to work a little bit better. But you can create kind of a petal shape this way. It's kind of an organic way of working with it. If there's a petal shape, I can do Command C, Command V, and I can rotate this. Maybe rotate it even more a little bit. Maybe we want to put a little bit of a stroke on this and just kind of create a flower shape this way. I mean, we could spend a little bit more time refining this, but, you know, and then we can group this. So we have a decent flower shape here. You can also create, I got an extra shape in here that I needed to have in there. And we can put the stroke on this one too. And even with this, we could do a Command C, Command V, and you can see that there's some shapes here that we could turn into a flower shape with the Shape Builder tool. We could actually push Option and start deleting these other shapes. We could zoom in and make a shape out of each of these, potentially. To make a flower shape. We could even Command C, Command V, and just get a few more petals out of this one. And build out a nice flower. Oops, didn't need to grab that one. Just using my black arrow tool, getting the little double arrow when I get to the edge, and positioning this like this, just rotating. That's kind of a nice flower shape. Command G or a group in the properties panel over here will help you. And then you can, you know, with this S shape, I would suggest using just a regular, I would delete these. I would use just a regular, the type tool, and put an S out there, and, you know, make it really big. I mean, we can make it 500. And I'm just going to delete this. I think you have some ideas for some twirls, or swirls, which I like. So if we create, you know, maybe something like that. These are kind of clunky, but we did end up getting a pretty cool shape out of the other shape. I think this floral could be, you know, improved quite a bit. It could be a lot thicker of a font. Maybe something like that. Those two look nice together. This should probably be, let's see, Control click, arrange, bring to front, just in case it's not on top. And then you had some swirlies, which we can definitely work with. We have a line. We can use the line segment tool. We can push shift and then drag out a straight line. We want to make sure the stroke on it's black. So we have a line here. Oops. I'm going to zoom in on it. I didn't mean to make another one here. So, oops. So I'll delete that. But this is the one I want to work with. And we can use, underneath the width tool, there is the twirl tool. And the twirl tool is kind of interesting. You can adjust the settings. I would suggest making it around this size and with the twirl rate of 49, detail of 2, and simplify at 50. So try to match it as close as you can to this. The brush size should be around, in relation to the size of the stroke, around this size. And then you just click and hold down along the edge. Oops, I didn't do that right. I want to do it on the left edge. And we want to just add it to, oops, we don't want to go too far with it. But something like that. It's not the best twirl, to be honest with you. I was hoping for a little bit nicer twirl. But we can simplify this a little bit. We can make it a little bit nicer with the smooth tool. And then I do have the delete anchor point tool under the pen tool. There's an extra anchor point that got added that I don't want in here. So I can clean that up. So I want this to be simple. Okay. And then we can use the width tool, which is up here. And we can use that to change the width of this. And you can grab anywhere in here and add width. I want to get rid of one of these anchor points because it's causing a bump that I don't want. I can use the smooth tool to make that smoother, or the delete anchor point tool works well. There is a bit of like an edge on this, which I don't like, but I can go to stroke and I can make this pointed at the ends. Oh, that's not really what I want. Maybe like that. This type of profile on my stroke. I went to the word stroke to find that. So we can make swirls. This isn't the best swirl. I was hoping for more of like the whole thing being swirled. But we could try just like deleting some of it. And maybe going back to the swirl tool. And just... It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I think it's too big too, by the way, at this stage. So we'll just make it smaller. Sometimes you just have to experiment too with it to get it to come out the way you want it to. It's kind of a difficult tool to master, to be honest with you. It seems like it should be a little bit easier, a little bit more straightforward, but I was able to make kind of a cool looking little twirl thing here that we could play around with. Kind of an elegant shape. I'm not loving it, to be honest. It's not coming off the way I wanted it to. But maybe something like this for your black and white logo. And I would almost go a little bit thicker with this one. I could just add a stroke. You know, maybe even kind of a bigger one, just to make it bolder. And then we want to make sure we outline these fonts, so we'll create outlines. I do notice that your artboards are not set up right, so you need to go to the black arrow tool, go over to properties, and edit artboards. If you don't see the edit artboards button, make sure your window, workspace, Essentials Classic. Make sure you're in Essentials Classic. And then the width and the height you can change here to 3x3. And then you'll have to grab your design by clicking and dragging over everything. Going to the free transform tool, you're going to want to push shift on your keyboard and just size this down. I should have outlined my S before I did that, but I can always do that. And so we want to just size that down using Shift and the Free Transform tool, so that fits on our artboard. So Command S, and then we can take the size of the strokes down a little bit too on that. Make it look a little bit nicer. And then this got a little goofy too. Let's make this 0.5. Okay. And we'll save that. So that could be your black and white. And you do have your file types done, right? But you just need to do a file export, export as, and when we export out our JPEGs, we're going to use artboards, make this a JPEG, and this looks like a good naming convention to me. Export that, replace, and this is the black and white, so we're going to do grayscale, and then the resolution needs to be high. Everything else can look the same, and push OK. So that's how you get your JPEG files. So, don't forget to outline your fonts, which I think you did. Let's do file save as, and we'll make the CMYK version. And replace your old one. Okay. This is where we can add color. You can see it's changed the file name. I'm just going to do a quick job of adding color. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I don't have that much time anyway. Today, I'm kind of a busy day today. But let's say these are the colors I'm going with. This is what I want. Got to change the stroke color on this too. Okay, those are the colors I'm wanting to go with. And so we want to export out. I did save that, so then I'm going to export out a JPEG. I'm going to use my artboards. That looks right. Export. So we want to make sure this is in CMYK and at high resolution. Push OK. So I would say work on your font pair. Don't forget to outline fonts. Work on finding a nice S. Doesn't have to be this type of S. And work on creating a little bit more of a creative flower shape, potentially with different shapes like I showed you. And maybe the warp tool, the twirl tool is interesting, the whip tool is interesting. But the shape builder is going to help you a lot as well in creating creating the flower shape. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. And make sure you export out those JPEGs correctly. And yeah, we'll talk to you later.